There's a pair of heels in the back of your closet you haven't worn in 2 years, not because they went out of style, because they hurt, and at 45, you finally stopped pretending they wouldn't. That's not vanity losing to comfort. That's your foot telling the truth. A shoe brand spent decades convincing you to ignore. Feet widen with age, the fat pad under the heel thins out, and a shoe built for a 25-year-old foot is still exactly what most of these brands are selling you, dressed up in language like all-day comfort and cushion support. Here's how you catch it before you buy. Press your thumb into the footbed. If it springs back, there's real cushioning underneath. If it stays flat, that's marketing, not material. 7 shoe brands quietly wrecking women's feet after 40. 7 that actually earned the word comfort. We start with the worst offender. Number 1, Cole Haan. Start here, because everything else on this list is a variation of the same trick. Cole Haan's mainstream dress flats and career pumps are cemented. The upper is glued straight to the sole, not stitched through anything a shoe repair shop can open. And once that bond breaks down, the shoe is finished. There's no rebuild waiting for it, no risole, just a box for donation. Here's where it turns from cheap to dishonest. On the pricier styles, there's a neat row of stitching running around the edge, the kind that's supposed to signal a real welt, a real rebuildable shoe. Pull one apart and that stitching goes nowhere. It sits on top of a glued seam and holds nothing together underneath it. The industry has a name for this: bond welt. A welt that isn't one sewn on to be photographed at the register, not to be trusted with your weight for the next 8 hours. This is where 40 changes the math. At 25, a flat sole and a narrow tapered toe box barely register. At 45, with less natural padding under the heel and a foot that's spread wider than it used to be, that same shoe turns into an ache by lunch and a limp by 5. You're not imagining it getting worse with age. The shoe never adjusted to your foot. You did all the adjusting, and your feet paid for it. Cole Haan built its name in Chicago in 1928, and for decades, that name meant something solid at a shoe counter, something you could trust without checking. What's sold under it now runs anywhere from $90 to $200 and trades hard on that old memory while quietly changing what's underneath the leather. Bend it in your hands before you buy it. If it folds anywhere but the ball of the foot, walk away. We read the seam, not the story it's stitched to tell. Number 2, Nine West, 1978. That's the founding year, and it isn't trivia, because for a long stretch after that, Nine West was one of the names women actually trusted to build a real dress shoe. Structured heel counters that held a woman's weight without folding sideways, leather linings instead of a plastic shell, pumps that held their shape through a decade of Mondays, not a single wedding season. That company, in any construction sense, doesn't run the label anymore. The brand went through bankruptcy in 2018, was sold off in pieces, and what's stocked under the Nine West name today is licensed out to whichever manufacturer wins the contract that year, built to a price point first and a standard second. Teardowns and longtime buyers who still shop the line describe the same thing over and over: cemented soles with nothing underneath them to rebuild. Thin, corrected grain leather standing in for the full grain the name used to guarantee. A heel silhouette that looks identical to the one you remember and folds under you 18 months in a way the old one never did in 8 years. This is the cruelest version of the pattern on this list because you may have owned the real thing. You bought a pair at 32 and wore it into the ground over 8 years. You bought the same name again last year for roughly the same $80, and it's cracking at the crease by month 10. The shoe changed. You didn't. And a foot that already carries less natural cushioning than it did back then has nothing left in reserve to absorb what a solid heel counter used to handle for you without complaint. Take the insole out if the store lets you. If there's a thin foam layer glued to cardboard where structure should be, that's your answer, before the shoe ever touches your foot. We read the factory it's built in now, not the one it used to be. Number 3, Jessica Simpson. What exactly are you paying for when the box says comfort? Not the sole, not the footbed. You're paying for a name that was never built by a shoemaker in the first place. It was built by a licensing company, the same company behind half a dozen celebrity labels, stamped with whichever face is selling that season, then handed off to whichever overseas factory bid lowest on the order that year. Spec first, because there isn't much of it. Cemented construction throughout the dress and heel lines, no exceptions worth naming, no line that breaks the pattern. Synthetic uppers marketed as leather look, which means polyurethane bonded over a fabric backing, not a hide at all. and it cracks at the flex point within a year instead of creasing the way real leather does with wear. A thin layer of foam glued directly onto the outsole gets called a cushioned footbed on the tag when there's no removable insert underneath it, no arch shape, nothing you could ever replace even if you wanted to keep the shoe going. This is the same trick the industry runs across every category, just dressed in a different name here. The word comfort has no legal definition on a shoebox. It doesn't mean supportive. It doesn't mean structured. It means somebody in marketing decided the word would sell, and a foot that's already lost some of its natural padding by 40 reads that word and reasonably assumes the shoe was engineered around it. It wasn't. The word came first. The shoe got built to a $40 cost target after the word was chosen. Here's the tell before you buy it. Squeeze the heel counter between two fingers. If it collapses flat under light pressure, there's no structure holding your ankle in place no matter what the tag promises above it. That collapse is where the ankle roll comes from at month 6, not from your balance getting worse with age. We read the footbed, not the word printed above it. Number 4. Steve Madden. Trend first, foot second. Cemented soles, synthetic uppers, foam insoles glued flat with no arch shape underneath, built against a delivery calendar instead of a wear life. Honest about being disposable, at least, and priced like it. The problem is what happens when disposable becomes the only option in your closet. Number 5. Aerosoles. The name itself promises cushioning, and for years it delivered some. What's on shelves now leans harder on the name than on the sole underneath it. Reviewers who've worn both eras describe thinner midsoles, cemented construction creeping into lines that used to be stitched, and comfort claims doing more work on the box than the actual foam does on your foot. Number 6. Christian Louboutin and the luxury heel tier generally. $900 buys real craftsmanship in the leather and the finish. It does not buy orthopedic construction, a wider toe box, or a heel built to hold a 50-year-old foot upright for 8 hours straight. You're paying for the red sole on the bottom, not the support underneath your arch. Number 7 closes out this half, and it needs a comparison, because tarring the whole brand would be lazy. Naturalizer runs 2 products under one name. Certain lines carry genuine contoured footbeds and real arch support built in. Others are cemented, narrow through the toe box, and marketed with the exact same comfort language regardless of which one you're holding. Check the specific model on the shelf, not the logo stamped across the box. Buy a $60 disposable pair every 2 years from $40 to $60, and that's roughly $600 spent across 10 pairs, every one of them thrown away. None of them ever supporting the foot you actually have now. That's not your failure. A wider forefoot and a thinner heel pad were never going to survive a shoe built for someone 20 years younger than you. Read the footbed, read the heel counter, and now let's look at what actually earns your money after 40. Now, the brand's worth your money after 40. First, Vionic. This is the cheapest way into a shoe actually engineered for an aging foot, and it isn't close. Every Vionic dress and casual style is built around a removable orthotic-grade footbed developed with input from podiatrists, not from a marketing department chasing a comfort word for the box. That footbed carries a molded arch shape and a deep heel cup that cradles the fat pad instead of flattening it under your weight, which matters most exactly where you'd expect. After 40, the natural cushioning under your heel thins out year over year, whether you notice it happening or not. A structured footbed replaces some of what your own foot quietly stopped providing on its own. A flat glued insole just asks you to keep absorbing all of that shock yourself, step after step, for the entire life of the shoe. Current pricing runs roughly $80 to $150 depending on the style, and wide-width options are built into the line from the start rather than bolted on as a rare afterthought, which matters for a forefoot that's spread since your 20s, whether you've admitted it or not. Podiatrist backing isn't a logo stamped on a box either. The American Podiatric Medical Association has formally accepted select Vionic lines for their arch support and biomechanical design, and that's a seal that isn't handed out for cushioned foam and a nice photo on the packaging. Compare that to the disposable pair from earlier on this list. One resolable, supportive pair worn for 4 or 5 years costs less across that stretch than 3 cheap pairs bought and discarded over the same window. The honest trade-off, because a real recommendation always carries one. Some of the dressier styles run narrower through the toe box than the casual lines do, so try before you commit if a wide forefoot is where you carry your width. And the structured footbed adds a small amount of height and bulk you won't find in a sleek glued flat, which some women notice immediately and some never notice at all. Bend it the way you learned at the start of this list. It flexes at the ball of the foot and holds its shape everywhere else, because there's an actual structure underneath the leather instead of a hollow shell pretending to be one. We read the footbed, not the price tag it's sitting inside. Number 2, Dansko. The spec is the argument here, and it starts with why nurses, chefs, and anyone standing on concrete for a 12-hour shift keep buying this brand instead of switching to whatever's trending that season. A rocker bottom sole that shifts your weight forward through the stride so your arch isn't doing all the work alone, step after step. A roomy, stable toe box built for a foot that's spread with age, not fought against it the way a tapered fashion last does. Full-grain leather uppers sit over a firm, supportive footbed that doesn't compress flat in 6 months the way glued foam does under daily weight. Current pricing sits roughly in the $130 to $170 range, higher than Vionic, and here's why that gap is justified rather than padding a margin. The construction is built for continuous daily wear, not for looking good for 4 hours at a wedding once a year. A woman on her feet all day gets years out of one pair, where a cemented flat gets months before it flattens. The honest trade-off is the silhouette. Dansko reads clog and professional before it reads dressy. So if you need something sleek for the office, this earns its place as your standing all-day pair rather than your only pair. Number 3, does a shoe have to look conventional to be worth owning? No. Bared Footwear breaks the expected mold entirely. Founded by a former podiatrist in Australia, the brand builds around the actual shape of a foot rather than a fashion last narrowed at the toe to look elegant sitting still on a shelf. Wide, anatomical toe boxes let toes splay the way they're supposed to under your weight instead of crowding together with every step. Supportive midsoles get placed specifically under the arch, not just cushioned everywhere and labeled comfort on the box. Prices generally run from $150 and up, and the trade-off is honest too. Anatomical shapes don't photograph the way a pointed pump does, and if you want a shoe engineered by someone who studied feet for a living rather than one built by someone who studied trend forecasts, that's exactly the point of buying it. We read the last it's built on, not the silhouette it borrowed to sell. Number 4, Clarks. Compare this one directly against the bad half because it's the control group in the whole experiment. Clarks was founded in 1825, roughly the same era as the heritage name that collapsed earlier on this list. And Clarks never abandoned the standard the way that name did. Comfort-driven lines like the Uncruise and the Cillian collections still use cushioned contoured footbeds and flexible stitched soles built specifically to move with a foot rather than fight it every step of the day. Nobody forced this industry to cut corners. Nine West did, and closed its own factory services on the way down. Clarks kept building for the foot standing in front of it instead. For a woman over 40 who's on concrete floors, walking a city, or on her feet through a full workday, this is arguably the most reliable name on the entire list. Full grain uppers that mold to your foot instead of asking your foot to mold to them. And a heel and arch structure that hold their shape long after a glued flat has gone soft and flat underfoot. The honest note, some of the dressier lines run firmer underfoot than the casual comfort collections do, so know which shelf you're shopping before you decide the whole brand let you down. Number 5, and this one needs a caveat attached. Alegria. Still worth buying, no longer worth buying blind. Genuinely excellent rocker bottom construction with deep cushioning and a wide, accommodating toe box, the kind nurses and teachers built entire wardrobes around for good reason. But quality control has grown inconsistent across styles and production runs in recent years, and reviewers report seams and finishing that vary noticeably from one pair to the next, even within the exact same line and size. So confirm the specific model and its current reviews before you order. And don't assume the reputation transfers automatically from a pair you bought 5 years ago. Inspect what arrives before you commit to wearing it daily, and don't hesitate to send back a pair that doesn't match what the good ones consistently deliver. Credit the construction it's known for. Verify the pair actually in your hand. We read the current batch, not the old reputation sitting on top of it. Number 6 closes the list where it started, because the whole case collapses into one number anyway. Vionic again, the value winner. and the 20-year math is what proves it. Call it $200 spent on a cemented dress flat with a comfort word printed across the box. 18 months if you're lucky, then the sole splits and there's nothing to rebuild. You buy again. Across 10 years, that's roughly 5 pairs, $1,000, and at no point did you own a shoe built for the foot you actually have. Now the supportive pair, around $100 for a removable orthotic footbed, a real arch shape, a wide toe box that doesn't fight your foot. One pair, worn properly, runs 3 to 4 years before it needs replacing instead of 18 months. That's roughly $250 across that same decade, not $1,000. A structured heel cup that holds the fat pad your body stopped cushioning on its own. Instead of an ankle rolling on a collapsed counter and handing the bill to your knees and your lower back, which is the part the price tag never shows you. The expensive shoe was always the disposable one. It just charged you in installments spread across a decade instead of all at once. Read the footbed, read the toe box, then do the division yourself before you buy the next pair. Because after 40, the best shoe was never the prettiest one on the shelf or the one with the highest price tag attached to it. It's the one built for the foot you actually have right now, the one that supports how you move today, and the one that still justifies its price 5 years from now. A logo stopped guaranteeing any of that a long time ago.